Tonight, the voice of you. We owe a debt of gratitude to you, the American people. It's now finally been heard. It's very loud. It's very clear. And at this very moment, because of all of you speaking so loudly, Washington, D.C., the establishment is terrified, and they should be. These people do not get what happened. I'm going to try to explain it to them. Now, the politicians, the pollsters, the elite media, the global elitists, they're all in shock from President-elect Donald Trump's historic victory yesterday. They said this would never happen. He didn't stand a chance in the Electoral College that voters in swing states wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. And guess what? They were all of them wrong, making this one of the greatest upsets in American political history. So the question is, let's help them understand how we got here. And so what did everybody miss? Peace, prosperity, right? They drive elections. And according to our Fox News poll that was released on Monday, 58% of you, the American people, said they're not satisfied with the direction of the country. And that number has been near or at that level or higher since 2009, since Obama became president. On top of that, we saw the exit polls from last night. It showed that a combined 72% of voters, that's you, are dissatisfied or angry with the federal government and how it's not working. Now, Donald Trump won 77% of those voters who said they're angry. You also have to look at the 40% of voters who said they wanted a candidate who could bring about change. 83% of those particular voters, they voted for Donald Trump. Now, to me, it's pretty obvious why voters felt that way, because the last 8 years have not been good under President Obama. Look at these numbers. Pay very close attention. These are real people, real Americans, real suffering, needless suffering. The lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. Almost 95 million of our fellow Americans are suffering and out of the labor force. The worst recovery since the 1940s. The lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. We now have 43 million of our fellow citizens on food stamps, 12 million more since Obama took office. Over 43 of our fellow citizens, 43 million Americans, they live in poverty. That's up over 8 million since Obama became president. Right now, we have 1 in 5 American families. They don't have a single member of their family in the labor force, in the workforce. And right now, 1 in 6 men between the ages of 18 and 34, prime working years, now they're either in jail, incarcerated, or living in mommy and daddy's basement out of work. And by the time President Obama leaves office, he will have accumulated more debt for this country than all 43 presidents before him combined. Now, everything that I just showed you, it isn't just the numbers. It's not government data. It's, for bureaucrats to say, oh, 43 million, okay, we'll look at that. These are our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers in some cases, real people, real Americans, real lives left behind. They are the forgotten people that Donald Trump has been talking about. He talked about the forgotten man, the forgotten American. Now, President Obama deserves a lot of the blame for this suffering, but so do the Republicans in Washington. They did nothing to stop Obama's agenda, even though they promised over and over again that they would. Republicans, at times, they were timid, they were afraid, they were spineless, they didn't want to take a stand. Republicans sat on their hands while President Obama exploded and doubled the national debt. Now, they have the enumerated power of the purse, but they refused to use it because they thought there would be political fallout and they may lose their jobs. Then you have the promise of Obamacare. Repeal, replace Obamacare. All right, well, that's one of the biggest lies ever told by government in American history. Remember, you like your doctor, you keep your doctor. Like your plan, you keep your plan. And on average, the American family is going to save $2,100 per year with Obamacare. A complete government failure, epic fail lie. The complete opposite happened. Millions of you lost your doctors. Millions lost your plans. Obamacare premiums have been surging by double digits. Even this year alone, many Americans have seen, $5,200 increase in health care costs. On average, since Obamacare went in place, $4,100 increase per family. You didn't save any money. And some states are now seeing a 100% increase starting in 2017. Now, look, for example, in foreign policy. You got the Iranian nuclear deal. Americans, they're not stupid. Given the #1 state sponsor of terror $150 billion, the ability to spin their own centrifuges, that's a really bad idea. And you don't pull out of Iraq for pure political purposes, ignoring the American lives, the blood, sweat, the treasure, the tears. You know, these guys fought, bled, and died for cities like Fallujah and Ramadi and Tikrit and Baghdad and Mosul. They won those cities. And then because it wasn't politically expedient, they pulled these guys out after they had these hard-fought victories. And look at Syria. Everyone feels bad for the refugees, victims of a civil war. But if you come from a country or an area of the world that has values that conflict with our constitutional republic, then it might pose a danger to America if we let them come here. Look at Saudi Arabia. Women can't drive. Women need permission to work or to travel. Marital rape in some of these countries is not recognized, and marital beatings not recognized. Gays and lesbians can be killed and thrown off the tops of buildings. And, of course, you can't build a church or a temple in a country like Saudi Arabia. Then there's Benghazi. Remember Hillary's failure? 600 separate requests for additional security before the attack. All of them ignored. 4 Americans died. It makes a big difference. Now, we failed the American soldiers, and I'm telling you that happened all from Washington. Let's look at African Americans in America today. And how many African Americans under Obama? What is the increase on food stamps? 58%. African Americans out of the labor force, up almost 20%. In Chicago, President Obama's hometown, over 3,800 people have been shot this year alone. And since Obama's been president, 3,656 people have been murdered in Chicago. And according to the Chicago Tribune, historical statistics now show 75% of those victims are African American. Has the Democratic Party helped these families out? Then on top of that, we've got a failed educational system, especially in inner city America. High school graduation rates are 9% lower for African American students than the national average, according to the most recent statistics. The high school dropout rate for African American students is also higher than the national average. The results should be much, much better that the U.S. is now ranked 4th in the world on per pupil spending, and it works out to be $11,600 per student. Despite the high spending, America ranks 17th in reading, 19th in science, and a whopping 26th in math. $11,600 a student? Donald Trump's going to send that money back to states, towns, municipalities, and then parents and local politicians can make those decisions. Also, you want to know what this election was about? Look at America's open borders. They're a mess, and they're not secure. And Americans knew that if Donald Trump actually builds that wall, then it's less likely that people will cross into the country. It'll also mean that Americans won't be competing with illegal immigrants for the few jobs that are available, driving down wages. And lastly, Americans know that we can become energy independent. And that means we don't have to deal with countries that hate our guts. We have more natural resources here in America that will literally, the lifeblood of our economy, that will fuel this country for generations to come, create millions of high-paying jobs and careers. Now, by the end of this week, I will outline the agenda that I believe that the forgotten people need so that the rungs of the ladder will be put back in so they can climb to success themselves. Those Americans that all these D.C. politicians, Republicans, Democrats, have ignored for way too long. Get people back to work. They can climb out of the pit that big government has put them in. I said that I'm, going to spend a lot of time naming names on this program. Well, I'm not sure if I will. I want the agenda advanced and as quickly as possible. Now, I'll say this to the politicians in Washington. I don't care if you have an R before your name, a D before your name. You either get on board solving these problems for these suffering Americans, I'm done with you. You either fix the problems, do your job, risk your career, be bold, be courageous, show vision, or get out of the way. That's how I feel. I'm also going to be calling out the abusively biased and corrupt media. WikiLeaks has shown us there is corruption in our media at a level we have never known. It's an informational crisis in America, and it is doing the American people, you, a grave disservice. Back in 2008, I said journalism was dead. But as WikiLeaks has exposed, it's far worse than any of us ever imagined. We now know that Donna Brazile over at CNN, the Clinton news network, she's handing over debate questions so Hillary can cheat. CNN is asking the DNC for questions that they should ask Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Carly Fiorina during interviews. Reporters asking the Clinton campaign for approval before they publish their stories. These so-called journalists allowed the campaign to edit quotes. John Harwood, CNBC, he was offering the campaign advice and bragging about going after Trump when he was a moderator at a debate. Well, that's the least of it. Now, WikiLeaks exposed how dozens of so-called journalists from all these major outlets, except the Fox News channel, were invited to eat dinner, wine and dined by John Podesta at his house. We'll be getting all of that out to you, but let me show you what this election is all about. Look at this painting right there. I love this guy. His name is John McMartin. Let's put it full screen if we can for a minute. It's called The Forgotten Man. And if you look there, there's a President Obama stomping on the Constitution. And there's all the presidents, obviously before Donald Trump, and there's that guy on the bench sitting there, and he's the one that has been left out. The people of Wisconsin, Ohio, Iowa, the people of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and all across this country, they saw this election for what it was: massive government failure, a massive decline, a precipitous decline in this country, and men and women, our fellow citizens, forgotten, like that guy on a bench. That's what this is about. And Donald Trump, the outsider, says he's going to fix these problems, and we have to wish him well. That's what nobody saw in this historic election. You saw it.